Welcome back to another stream. Now today we're reacting to I'm sorry, we were forced to run errands. It was Hey everyone, it's me, Two Sheds, here with a new video for you. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of the man that many will tell you won World War II, the one and only Winston Churchill, one of the most famous leaders in all of world history. So today, I'm going to pay tribute and tell you all his story. Let's get started. So Winston Churchill was born in Oxfordshire, England on November 30th, 1874 to Lord Randolph and Lady Jeanette Churchill. From a young age, his family was quite prominent, his father having recently been elected to Parliament no earlier than that year. A couple years later, due to his grandfather being promoted to Viceroy of Ireland, Churchill and his family moved to Dublin in 1876. Young Winston would move back to England at 7 years old, boarding school in Berkshire, but struggled there a bit. Luckily, in 1884, he transferred to Stoke Brunswick School, where his academics improved quite a bit. By 1888, in fact, he was able to pass the exam for Harrow School, a local military academy. After spending the rest of his academic life there, he was finally able to see the world in the army. In 1895, after having been in reserves for a couple of years and having attained the rank of lieutenant, Churchill was commissioned, thanks in large part to his influential mother, to Cuba during the Cuban War of Independence. While the UK was not involved in this war militarily, as he heavily favored the Spanish keeping it under its rule, and to report news of the war back to London. After several weeks of being involved in that war, he resigned from the military to live his own more peaceful career in journalism. He spent a few weeks in New York City to report the goings-on there before he moved to India. While living in India alongside his usual work, he spent time learning about the politics back at home. The only time he left India during those few years was to witness a report on the Battle of Omdurman, a serious turning point in the conquest of Sudan by both England and Egypt. He enjoyed life in India, as it seemed to help combat the depression that he had suffered from for much of his life. However, one day, something unexpected would call him back to the line of duty. In October of 1899, the Second Boer War broke out, and Churchill, despite now gaining enough traction to consider a run for Parliament, decided to rejoin the military. He was one of the first British soldiers to enter what we now know as South Africa. He took a part in a front to retake Pretoria after the brutal siege of Ladysmith. In July of 1900, he retired from the military again and finally did what many were expecting, run to be an MP. He was successful in gaining a seat, but was in the wrong hemisphere to engage in any meetings. Instead, he returned to the United States and other nations to get funds to rebuild the British Army after the brutal war. He even got to meet then President William McKinley and soon-to-be Vice President and President Theodore Roosevelt, the latter of whom supposedly didn't care much for him. After acquiring sufficient funds from lectures on the war in various nations, he finally returned to England to go to his governing work. So Winston Churchill finally took his seat in 1901 as a member of the Conservative Party. You know, the one that still exists today. However, as time went on, he He proved more critical of their stances, particularly on military funding, as the Boer War was clearly going nowhere at this point. He often worked alongside members of the Liberal Party, you know, the one that doesn't still exist today. But they were pretty big back then, being the Conservatives' major opposition. After a couple of years, it was pretty clear that Churchill was with the Conservative Party in name only, as he failed to back movement after movement. The last straw, however, came in May of 1904, when they proposed the Aliens Bill, which would have prevented Jewish people from immigrating to the UK in large numbers. This was the call he needed to, as Parliament calls it, cross the floor and formally switch his allegiance to the Liberal Party. For now, anyway.
Error.
Now that he was with the new party, Churchill, alongside other popular statesmen of the time, let his policies show. This became possible when Henry Campbell Bannerman became prime minister and called for an early election, which the Liberal Party won by such a wide majority that they could get nearly anything through for the time being. Churchill was placed as Under-Secretary of State, a position which he had vied for often in the old party. Little did he know, his career would launch even further under the next office. Prime Minister Campbell Bannerman, as it turned out, would contract a terminal disease and was forced to resign, not a few weeks before his death. Chancellor H. Asquith replaced him and appointed Churchill President of the Board of Trade, a cabinet-level position. However, Churchill ended up finding something nice for himself outside of Parliament as well. So in 1904, Churchill, at a royal ball, met Clementine Hoosier, a local socialite. While they didn't keep much communication at first, by 1908, they were comfortable enough together to start dating. 5 months later, Churchill proposed marriage, which she gladly accepted. They were married at Westminster Abbey on September 12, 1908, and honeymooned in Venice. The pair eventually had 5 children together, the 4 of which that survived to adulthood would go on to lead very successful lives in their own right.
Looks like you can't talk anymore.
As it turned out, having a family to go home to and enjoy seemed to help Churchill perform better and better in his position, and soon he was moved even higher up the ladder.
Not again!
So in 1911, Asquith chose Churchill as First Lord of the Admiralty, where he pushed to build up practically all of the military to keep up with Germany, which had been looking to become the premier land power in Europe for a while. It was under him that the seaplane was created, and in fact, over 100 had been built prior to the war. When World War I began in 1914, Churchill was largely in control of the Navy especially. While he sent several boats and submarines around the Baltic Sea to assist the Russians, the place he considered most critical was the Middle East. His ambitions even went as far as sieging Constantinople, but unfortunately the expedition fell short. After that, to fulfill a deal with the other parties to form a coalition, Churchill had to be removed from the cabinet.
Oh my God.
Not to be easily discouraged after being removed, Churchill, now in his 40s and a sitting member of Parliament, returned to the front lines and joined a force on the Western Front. By early 1916, he had been promoted to lieutenant colonel and was assigned a battalion. Churchill and his soldiers, however, faced continuous bombings from the Germans. At one point that May, nearly being hit by shrapnel himself. After that close call, he, understandably, asked to stand down from that command. After making his grand return to the House of Commons, he argued for more upgrades towards his battalion in particular, but his beggings fell on deaf ears as pro-conservative party media outlets continued to blame him for what had happened in the Middle East. There was, however, one powerful man who was able to hear him out.
Son of a...
Because of the new political coalition gaining power during the war, H.H. Asquith resigned as prime minister to make way for David Lloyd George. George created a new cabinet position called the Minister of Munitions and chose Churchill to fill it in July of 1917. He persuaded various factories, many of which were subject to workers' strikes, to get back to work as the war was at a critical point. He was also one of the most influential people in the cabinet, speaking out for women's rights, even pushing for their right to vote once the war was over, which ended up passing in February of 1918. By that November, World War I was over, and while the Minister of Munitions office was abolished shortly thereafter, he was appointed to the Secretary of State for War office instead. Shortly after the war, an election was called for, and Churchill campaigned on behalf of Prime Minister George, calling for more domestic issues to emphasize focus on home now that everything was back to almost normal. Almost, as he was going through arguably the worst phase of his life back at home.
Oh, finally!
Unfortunately, the early 1920s were probably the worst part of Churchill's life overall. It all started in June of 1921 when his mother Jeanette, who, after having been estranged with him for his younger years, he had finally reconnected with, died very suddenly. Not long after that, worse yet, his 2-year-old daughter Marigold died after a long battle with sepsis. Politically, things also turned for the worse, as the 1922 election was where the Liberal Party really started to collapse.
It would not get better.
Churchill stuck recovering from an appendectomy and was unable to campaign. Possibly as a result of this, despite having been in the cabinet, Churchill was voted out of his own seat, being the first time since 1901 that he was out of office. He spent the next couple of years in Cannes as his health recovered. By March of 1924, he had recovered enough to make a solid campaign for a new seat. However, he saw the writing on the wall with the decline of the Liberal Party, and since he hated the Labour Party even more, he decided to swallow his pride and walk back to the doorstep of the Conservative Party, and surprisingly, they welcomed him back with open arms. They found him a new seat, and in that election that October, he rode a huge Conservative wave back into office. Shortly after he returned to the Parliament, Churchill was appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer, the main controller of the Treasury. By 1925, he had restored the gold standard at the behest of the party, which, while it curbed inflation quite a bit, it is said to have caused a rise in unemployment, particularly in the hard labor industries. The following year, a strike occurred to protest these economic policies. However, conveniently, a newspaper came in reassuring people of better times. Gee, that was a lifesaver. I wonder who put that together. Oh. Guess that journalism career paid off after all, huh? Churchill's stint as Chancellor of the Exchequer came to an end in 1929 when the Labour Party ousted the government and fired him. Churchill was naturally disappointed by this, but kept moving forward, already campaigning for a Conservative comeback the moment they were ousted. He was put in now former Prime Minister Baldwin's shadow cabinet, but in early 1931 he resigned due to a pretty extreme disagreement. You see, many in the shadow cabinet believed that India, at the time a territory controlled by the UK, should be given Dominion status. Churchill's views, particularly on race, however, were, shall we say, of their time. They weren't quite Woodrow Wilson levels out there, but he was strongly opposed to letting them rule and potentially even have full independence, something he could hardly conceive of with his worldview. Sadly, his unique view cost him a cabinet position when the Conservatives regained control in October, but he had bigger problems soon after. So in 1933, an evil man called Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. Churchill knew immediately that he was a clear and present danger to Europe if left unchecked. However, someone he was seemingly even more worried about was Benito Mussolini of Italy, particularly after he sent his forces to invade the country of Ethiopia.
They never got Ethiopia.
Churchill knew that getting the country united to oppose this threat was a necessity. He demonstrated this by being one of the first in Parliament to pledge loyalty to King George VI after an abdication crisis that left the nation sharply divided. The two of them would have actually a pretty strong working relationship for the next 16 years. Things got off to a pretty slow start on the foreign front because of a certain someone getting to power. In 1937, the Conservative Party chose a new leader during its term in power, thus a new Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain. Winston Churchill was a supporter when he was rising to power, but quickly regretted that when he saw his policy towards the fascist nations in Europe. Chamberlain believed that he could appease them by letting them have what they wanted, and hoping that was enough to satisfy them. But that ended up not being enough, much to his dismay and disappointment. Chamberlain was quickly becoming one of the most unpopular prime ministers the UK has ever had. To mitigate this, he appointed Churchill as First Lord of the Admiralty in 1939, his first time in cabinet in over a decade. And finally, after the German invasion of Poland, he reluctantly declared war on Germany, though, because of course, almost no war effort was given at first. In May of 1940, when Germany invaded Belgium, Chamberlain finally decided to take things more seriously, but the Labour Party was not willing to cooperate with him during the war. As a result, on May 10th, 1940, Chamberlain resigned and endorsed Winston Churchill for leadership, who was appointed Prime Minister later that day. So both parties were generally not thrilled with Winston Churchill becoming Prime Minister, but hey, at least that Chamberlain guy wasn't handling things anymore, and was also dead pretty soon after. Despite this, however, he was quickly able to get both parties onto the cabinet and create a pretty effective system. Germany began to bomb London shortly after his appointment, but under his strong leadership and rousing speeches over the radio, he was able to encourage soldiers of all the Allied nations to fight on. While the United States was not involved with what is now known as World War II from the start, Churchill was close friends with President Franklin Roosevelt and was able to get him to agree to a Lend-Lease deal, which provided important materials to the Allies throughout the war. However, things would quickly get more involved from my side of the pond pretty soon. World War II was going back and forth at first, but hope arrived at the tail end of 1941 when the United States was pushed into the war by planes from Japan. When Germany and Italy were baited into declaring war on them, things started to brighten up. Winston Churchill began to be seen as a much more appealing figure internationally, so he took advantage of this by going to other nations looking for even more support. Beyond that, he also traveled to battlefields, giving statements to large amounts of Allied soldiers, which strongly encouraged them to keep going. Many were won over by how in touch he seemed with the struggles of the soldiers and his charismatic manner of speaking to the groups. He, along with the aforementioned President Roosevelt and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, were the big three faces in the world at the time, at least from the Allied side. A big turning point arrived on June 6, 1944, when British and American soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy, quickly liberating occupied France. Once they pushed into Germany, victory seemed inevitable. After pushing into Germany by early 1945, everyone in the world could see that the Allies had the war in the bag. Germany surrendered on May 7th, 1945, and the following day, all England celebrated VE Day, which Churchill was, of course, the big star of. Large crowds gathered all through London to cheer their warhorse on. This was the most celebrated Churchill had ever been in his whole life. After things finally calmed down, Churchill and his allies began to decide how to handle occupied Germany at the Potsdam Conference. However, when weapons of mass destruction were mentioned, Stalin suddenly became a bit more sus. But that's for later. For now, when arriving home, Churchill dissolved the wartime cabinet in preparation for the next election, the first in 10 years due to a delay from the war. Churchill was incredibly popular, though, so a second term seemed guaranteed. Right? While Churchill had campaigned on behalf of several Conservative Party candidates before, the election of 1945 was the first where he was running for Prime Minister. His opponent from the Labour Party was one of his biggest allies in the war, Clement Attlee. Churchill had the popularity and accomplishment advantage, but many voters were swayed by Attlee's promises to return the UK to normal, shouting, "Let us face the future." Possible swayers of vote were the dying Liberal Party's Archibald Sinclair and the National Liberal Party's Ernest Brown. Things seemed like they were headed for a competitive election, with both parties sure they had it in the bag. But when votes were cast on July 5th, 1945, Churchill was absolutely crushed. Clement Attlee won a total of 393 seats and 49.7% of the popular vote, shortly thereafter succeeding Churchill as Prime Minister. Winston Churchill finished a distant second, winning 197 seats and only 36.2% of the popular vote. Archibald Sinclair finished third, winning 12 seats and 9% of the popular vote, being a rare party leader to even lose his own seat. However, even his party topped Ernest Brown's 11 seats and 2.9% of the popular vote. Those 11 seats just ended up joining the Conservative Party after that. Many were shocked, as this was the first Labour victory in over a decade, and against a popular wartime leader no less. Churchill left the Prime Minister's seat on July 26th and took the new position as leader of the opposition. Despite the humiliating loss, the Conservative Party still had faith in Churchill and didn't bother replacing him as the leader and as a representative of the country as a whole. Throughout early 1946, they sent him to the United States once again to warn against the threat of the USSR and communism in general, because it was becoming a greater threat at the time. Towards the end of his tour, he gave his famous Iron Curtain speech in Fulton, Missouri. After his visit ended, the United States quickly became the main opponent of the Soviets in what became known as the Cold War, and would remain as such until the early 1990s. The Cold War wasn't the only thing on Churchill's mind at this point. He also played an important role in founding the Council of Europe, an organization that would help uphold the law and peace in Europe, in hopes that World War III wouldn't happen anytime soon after the second one had just ended. However, after Prime Minister Attlee's first term was coming to an end, Churchill tried his hand at returning to his old seat.
Come on!
The election of 1950 was, as most were expecting, essentially a rematch between the Labour Party's Prime Minister Clement Attlee and the Conservative Party's former Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Not entirely, however, as the Liberal Party tried their hand again with their newfound leader, Clement Davies, to see if they could at least outdo what happened last time. The main issue of the day was rationing of petrol.
It makes cars go.
After the war, it became much harder to come by and was becoming much more valuable by this point. So it was deemed unnecessary by many to continue rationing, such as by Churchill, who planned to phase it out after taking office. Votes were cast on February 23rd, 1950, and while it was closer than last time, Clement Attlee once again came out on top, winning 315 seats and 46.1% of the popular vote. Churchill once again finished second, winning 298 seats and 43.4% of the popular vote, indicating that things at least slid a bit further back into the Conservatives' direction. Clement Davies finished third, receiving only 9 seats and 9.1% of the popular vote. Churchill stayed in his opposition seat, or at least he would have, had not a stroke of luck come his way soon after. So during his second term, Clement Attlee was frustrated with his reduced control, having to be much more moderate to keep his majority happy, which is why he, among other reasons, decided to call for an early election. Despite the weaker showing indicating a lack of mandate, he thought he had built up enough goodwill in the previous year to get a stronger majority. Winston Churchill, despite now pushing 77 years old, decided to make one last break for his esteemed seat. The same 3 candidates were on the ballot as before, and Churchill hit the campaign trail harder than ever, shouting "Britain strong and free" wherever he would go. This time, votes were cast on October 25th, 1951, and Churchill finally got his win. He pushed ahead with 321 seats and 48% of the popular vote, his best showing yet, and returned to the Prime Minister's seat the next day. Clement Attlee came in second this time, winning 295 seats and 48.8% of the popular vote, meaning Churchill actually lost the popular vote but won the right seats in his favor. Clement Davies came in third, winning this time only 6 seats and 2.5% of the popular vote. Sure is a good thing Churchill left the Liberal Party behind, wasn't it?
No text.
Winston Churchill's second term as Prime Minister was largely defined by his foreign policy. He had a strong partnership with America as recent allies during the war, but he and President Truman struggled to keep the Cold War under control. Soviets were becoming particularly aggressive in Korea, but Churchill knew that control of the Middle East was essential for the UK. Luckily, Truman had his back with the Soviets, but still, the situation in the Middle East remained tense, especially with General Nasser's Egyptian revolution ongoing. Things suddenly shifted with his allies and enemies in 1953, when Dwight Eisenhower succeeded Truman as president and Joseph Stalin died suddenly. Churchill wanted to host a conference, but the Soviets refused to join, so the two of them were dead out of luck. Churchill even more so, as age was starting to finally catch up with him. Due to his advancing age, many expected Churchill to resign during the term at some point, and was particularly encouraged to do so by not one but 2 monarchs. Many were also seemingly happy with the man who was essentially his second in command during this term, Anthony Eden, serving as Prime Minister himself. But, to the surprise of most, he remained vigilant as long as he could. However, things did catch up to him eventually, whether he liked it or not. On June 23rd, 1953, he suffered a severe stroke and went to his home in Kent until such time as he could return safely. During this time, the rest of the cabinet essentially ran the country as an autonomous being in secret. While he was able to recover and return to his duties, he was essentially at half speed from then on, and decided after a while that the time had come. He resigned as Prime Minister on April 5th, 1955, and was succeeded by the aforementioned Anthony Eden. While Churchill was done leading the UK permanently, he remained a member of Parliament and continued to receive many honours. During his second ministry, he had already been knighted, but upon resignation, he was even offered by Queen Elizabeth II to be named the Duke of London, though he declined the offer due to distrust of what his eldest son Randolph would do to the title upon his death. He was very critical about Eden's way of handling the Suez Canal and was worried that it could make the UK look bad around the world. In 1959, he was given the honorary title of Father of the House, which is usually given to the longest consecutively serving member of Parliament. An even rarer achievement was when he became the first person ever to be named an honorary citizen of the United States, and one of only 2 people ever named one while still living. On November 30th, 1964, Churchill became the first person to ever serve as Prime Minister to live to the age of 90, though just prior to that, he decided to stand down as a member of Parliament completely and live out his final days in seclusion. He suffered another stroke in early 1965 and succumbed to it on his death on January 24th, sending the UK into national mourning. He was one of only 3 prime ministers, and very few subjects in general for that matter, to receive a state funeral, and the last person to receive one for over half a century. He was finally interred at St. Martin's Church in Blaydon after lying in state for 3 days. So that's the story of the man who basically won World War II for the Allies, and even now, his legacy continues to stay strong. Many years after his death, he was even named the greatest Briton who ever lived, which is hard to argue with. I'm glad I was able to share his story with you, and I'd like to thank you for watching. This has been Two Sheds. Till next time.
Okay, now that's finished. We're going to have a special guest. So, okay. So, as we wait for Two Sheds to appear, okay, so Two Sheds is going to take a bit, but for right now, I guess what we could do is go to Twitter.
In the United so let me say very simply, I want more babies in the United States of America. So let me say very simply.
Huh? Oh, yeah, right. I forgot. Anyways. What? What? Yep. Okay, should be coming. Okay. Almost ready. Just delete the video, then re-upload it. It's the only way. Okay, anyways. I'm trying to think, what should I post? Nah. This. Mm-hmm. Huh? Huh. Well, I think someone's coming. All right, let's see if anyone's going to fall for the A phone. What the? Okay, so. Oh, wow, you deleted it already.
Howdy, folks. It's Two Sheds here, and today we are going to be reacting to the
I'm using the bathroom. I'm back. Huh? What the? Hey.
Alright, I fixed it. So unless something unforeseen happens, we have the final caught up.
Okay. Anyway, so I'm just on Twitter looking at your posts.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Speaking of Twitter, I posted some misinformation on there.
Why would you do that?
Just look at what I posted. Wait, what just happened? Can you read that?
The future of technology? A phone? I can't see it now. Okay, I think it's just me. All right. I can't see it now, so I can't read it. Besides, I'm making.
What the hell just happened? Like my computer just closed me out immediately. What the fuck?
I don't know.
I just don't know what to think anymore, man.
All right.
Okay. I think I got it now. Okay, so here is my misinformation.
Okay, I put up the new one.
You can read the misinformation now.
The only downside is they can fry your brain.
Yep. But hey, this kind of reminds me of the Neuralink thing. I think that's what inspired this. But yeah, right off the bat, I already got. Oh yeah, I'm trying to think. So I'm. So apparently, yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I saw this. Okay, so I found something that might get a kick out of you. What the heck? Why is my feed? Oh yeah, this. So I don't get something about this. You want to see what I'm referring to? Look at this. Someone put in a video of trans rights before. This video is supposed to be pro-trans rights, where it shows the trans flag coming out of a demon's mouth, which is
Interesting.
Yeah, apparently someone responded to this
That's
unironically.
the best way to go about that. At least
What?
it's not the best way to go about that I could think of.
I know. It reminds me a lot of that one horrible video. Oh, God.
Which one? You show me many.
This one was supposed to be pro-gay rights. Oh, boy. I'm going to have to just show you it. Okay, let me just get onto YouTube. Okay. Now, oh, God. Why do I get the curse things in my feed? Like it's already bad enough that I have to deal.
Because you look at all the curse things. That's probably why.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if you've seen this before. All right. I'm not sure if you've seen this before.
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you.
I said he looks like Taika
You think we're
Waititi.
sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect.
what's gonna happen.
But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked.
Just watch.
Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco.
Can you see what I'm referring to?
Yeah.
He unironically, so what just happened? So that they're trying. This is trying to say that I don't know what the point of this was. You want to know what's even worse? There's a lyric in the song where they say, "We're coming for your children."
Phrasing.
I don't even get how this song. What was they thinking, right?
I don't know. That's just weird, man.
It feels like something that would come out of the Daily Wire, right?
Yeah.
Not something unironically made. This is the world's dumbest thing ever. But you know what? That's not even the worst thing that's ever happened since, there's the, this movie existing.
Oh yeah. I still need to see it. Well, need is kind of an exaggeration.
You want to see a song from it?
Not really.
All right, never mind then.
Why would I want to watch that movie voluntarily?
I saw it. I gotta say, I have too many. Like, either that was written by the Daily Wire or they were just terrible at making a good movie. Like, I feel like it's like that movie made me think that Matt Walsh broke into the writer's room and just wrote the script in order to own the libs. It was that tone deaf.
Really?
And what's even worse is that the director of the movie said he didn't need to go to Mexico in order to learn Mexican culture.
Why not?
He already knew enough about Mexican culture.
Well, I've already been there once, so does that mean I know enough? I know more.
You probably know more about it than him.
Yeah.
Like seriously, I never want to see that movie ever again.
All I can say is it's looking like Crash is probably not going to be the most hated Best Picture winner of all time for much longer.
Yeah. Isn't the medic already a German guy?
Isn't who?
Medic from TF2.
I think so.
Like, if I recall correctly, since TF2 takes place kind of after World War II.
I mean, that wouldn't be impossible in that case.
Yeah, it appears the medic may have actually been punching his hero. Oh, God. But yeah, off the bat, you could tell some movies, they just fail miserably. But you want to know what probably is the dumbest thing ever?
What is it?
You know that taco thing? The scam
Del Taco?
I showed a teacher the news hot clip. It was funny what their reaction to it was.
Did you show them the clip or the news video?
This.
Oh, that.
Caught on tape and busted. A reputed gang member is behind bars.
Oh, man. I still can't believe an idiot would do this. But you want to know what is funny thing I found? I found out about something that's definitely going to make your day.
What is it?
Okay. So, let me think. Oh, God. Jeff Blanchard. Oh, no.
Is that Biden?
Project 25 will destroy America.
It's almost like he tried to warn us.
I don't know. It's just, didn't Biden already do enough damage as there was?
I don't know.
Like, yeah. Oh, God, stone toss. Oh, boy. Oh, what did you think of that?
Whoa.
The alignments are insane. Oh yeah, what did you think about that Kamala thing? Yeah, this meme.
I didn't see it till now, but
Yeah,
there's a difference.
There's a
Although
difference.
Kamala didn't start raising that kid until either of her stepkids until they were well into their teens.
Yeah, definitely.
So is it really?
Oh God,
I think it's more Doug Emhoff's fault than hers at that point.
yeah. Oh no, it's Squidward.
It is up. It is. That's today. I have no clue. Or I did know. I totally knew that it was opposite day today. Absolutely.
Either. Yeah, let's just not. Anyways, so another thing I found out about that might be interesting. This happened a while ago, but so what was I looking for again? Crap, I forget. Hey, you remember that game I was telling you about a while ago? This one.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah.
Aside from this, have you made your final selection for the movies you want to review in the video that you're working on?
So far, I mean, you want to know what I was planning on putting on the list?
What?
Okay, so there was just going to be this section called "Get Out Ripoffs." That's the title in progress.
There are that many? That movie's only not even 10 years old.
Get Out. You know, like the.
Yeah, I know, but that.
Get Out ripoffs.
But how can there be so many already? That movie is not even that old.
Okay, Get Out movie ripoffs. Okay, so I found out about something. Oh God, where is it? Like there were a couple, so that's why. Like I found them out from let me try and do something. The thing. Okay, this should be working. There we go.
The Thing isn't a political movie.
No, it's not the political. That's not it. The channel that uploaded that video made this.
Get mechanic training at Universal Technical
This goes
Institute and
over a
learn the
couple
skills
of-
needed to pursue.
Wow. Okay, so just watch.
I'll watch as much as I can.
Yeah, just so they bring up a couple of movies.
In 1915, director D.W. Griffith released
that's
Birth of a
Mitchell's
Nation.
favorite
Based on
movie.
Confederate apologist novel The Klansman, the movie is a 3-hour epic spanning several years in the lives of
That
two
was the
fictional
least
important white
enthusiastic narrator
families,
I've
one in the
ever
North
heard.
and one in the South, as they navigate the years of Reconstruction after the Civil War. Portrayed in the film as a time of chaos and social destruction, the result of out-of-touch Northern policies being carelessly grafted onto communities where they were doomed to fail. And yes, by policies I do mean ending slavery. Today, Birth of a Nation is most famous for being one of the most transparently racist films ever made. Its portrayal of black people as vengeful, shiftless opportunists, hardly better than animals, is driven home by an extended sequence where a good Southern girl flings herself off a cliff rather than be raped by a black man, naturally played by a white man in blackface, who is later righteously lynched by the Klan. As this scene would imply, the horrors of miscegenation is a constant theme in this movie, the birth of a nation referring to the eventual marrying of the children of the two white families from opposite sides in a symbol of peace and reconciliation literally presided over by Jesus Christ himself. The problem, says the film, the source of all America's conflicts isn't our various ideologies has traditionally been waiting. I deliberately included Master as an example here because of their experience.
Okay, let me just
the rest of
where is it? Okay, so they go over a couple of things. So basically, the whole point of this video was to show off how, the movie Get Out, not only was it good for the black community, but also kind of, did some things. Such as it led to probably a new subgenre of horror known as race horror, but unlike with other movies in the genre like Get Out, a lot of them are more like cash grabs, sort of. So they named like 3 movies, if I recall correctly. One of them was Antebatum, I think, if that was how it was called. Hello?
Yeah.
So I was planning on showing off
all of these.
Yes, but you want to know what would be funny?
What?
I was also planning on, for the video. Have you heard of the movie Hunt?
I think I have. The Hunt, you mean? I actually want to watch that movie soon.
Well, that was actually kind of a political horror movie. It was about how QAnon is real and such. I mean, it's decent. I'll give it that, but it's definitely not. That it definitely belongs on the list.
We're talking about the Danish movie, right?
I was talking about the American remake that came out in 2020, and
no, I was thinking about the original version. I heard that one's really good, but I don't know about the other one.
Oh boy, let me just show you.
Why would they remake it so soon? That would have been only what?
Well, I was including this one. I was including this. I was going to include this. You want to know why?
Why?
Because this uses politics. And, okay, so let me just get on the TV tropes, because that's another place you can see the plots of movies.
I don't think that this movie that you're talking about is an actual remake. I'm looking at the plots side by side. It looks like a very different movie.
Okay. Yeah, so as you can see, it's definitely political, right? Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, I'm trying to find it. Okay, so basically, all right, so here's the premise, as you can see. They are hunting people for sport because of a text inspired by some, Let me just show you where I'm. I mean, it's okay of a movie, but if you just look, that's who the bad guys are. The left.
Oh my. Anyway.
But yeah, it's basically bad guy versus bad guy sort of. But yeah, it's definitely a political movie, and that's why I'm bringing it up on the list.
Anyway, I'm kind of exhausted after all that debacle.
Yeah. Anyways, I think it's good to end the stream here today.
All right.